That line in the song is really confusing because nobody climbs a mountain with their hands wide open. But there's this element to faith. And the element to faith is not that we check our brains at the door. It's not that we don't have logic. It's not that we don't have facts. It's not that we don't believe certain things that we know are true. There's a certain aspect of faith that says, God, right now, I can't see what you're up to, but I'm trusting you're going to make me get up this mountain. God, I don't know the ending, but you do. I don't know how this thing's going to finish. I don't know the outcome of the story. What I do know is that right now I'm climbing the mountain and I'm scared to death, but I'm putting my trust in you. Why? Because the scriptures promise us, it promises us that God works out all things for the good of those who love him. So as we're climbing the mountain, may we release control. May we lift our voices and lift our hands and raise our hands. And may we understand that the situation may be scary right now, but there's a God of the universe who turns ashes into beauty. There's a God of the universe that turns our mess into something beautiful. And I want to encourage you to just lift this up. If you're here today and you are a Christ follower, I want to ask you to literally just let go, open your hands and lift it to God and give God control. Will you just sing out as we sing that bridge one more time? Today we are continuing our series, Life's Not Fair, but Jesus is Not Done. And the scripture that's going to guide us is from the Old Testament. It's from a book called Proverbs. And Proverbs says, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Proverbs 14:30. Would you just pray with me? Would you bow your heads, close your eyes? God, we just come before you right now. And we just release control to you. That is not easy for us to do. That takes faith that believes no matter how difficult our situation, no matter how difficult our circumstances, that you are still in control. And we ask right now, God, that you would just speak to our hearts and our minds. God, when you speak, we often become afraid. So we just ask in Jesus' name that you would give us the courage to do whatever you tell us to do. And God, we ask that you would just remove the distractions from this room, that you would remove the distractions from our hearts and our minds, that you'd help us to focus on you, but help us to be people who don't just listen to the word, but help us to be people who do what it says. May the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in your sight. Oh Lord, you are my rock and my redeemer. In Jesus' name, amen. You may have a seat. Woo! I got to know, is there anyone excited to be at church today? Yeah. Awesome, awesome. So great to worship with you. We are concluding our series, Life's Not Fair, but Jesus is Not Done. And before we get into the text, I want to give a few shout-outs. First off, every single Sunday is somebody's first time at Next Level Church. So if you're a regular attender, would you help me welcome our first-time guests that are here today? Also want to give a special shout out to those who serve in our military. Thank you so much for your service. Will you help me welcome them? I want to give a special shout out to those who are watching online. We're so thankful for you. And something that is very cool is every week we can see where people are watching our service. And we have people all across America that tune in regularly to watch our services, which we think is pretty cool. But I do want to just challenge everyone that's in the room and our online service. I want to challenge you just real quick. And this may step on your toes, but I want to challenge you. The point of the online service is not to make church easier for you. If you live in this area, you need to understand that Jesus, when he called you to follow him, he did not say, take up your cross and make your life easier. He said, take up your cross and die. And so if the reason that you continue to watch online is just because it's easier, I would challenge you in that. The online service is made for those who cannot make it in person, those that don't live around here, or those that, for some reason, sickness, on vacation, or just had a baby, those reasons. And so just want to challenge you, because there's something special about being in the house and being with people and being around people, and not just being with your church family and attending a service, but also serving and giving back. So I want to encourage you to make sure that you are doing that. And I want to give one more shout out, a final shout out to one of our owners. And I won't embarrass him by saying his name, but at Next Level Church, we don't have members, we have owners. Members have rights, but owners have responsibilities. And one of our owners has been here since the very beginning. He's one of the first people that joined us, and he is an amazing behind-the-scenes type of guy. And we have currently this building, we're very thankful for this building, but it is very old and it's constantly falling apart. And we had some lights that were not coming on in the bathroom, and we replaced the bulbs, we did everything we could. Well, he came in last week on his vacation he's an electrician. He came in on his vacation to fix the lights in our men's bathroom. And I saw him doing it. I had no idea he was coming in. And I was like, hey, so great to see you. You fixing the light? He's like, yep. He's like, I was on vacation this week, so I decided to come in and help the church out. I thought that was incredible. So would you help me give him a little love? All right, today we're concluding our series, and I am challenging everyone to stop saying the phrase, that's not fair. I want to encourage everyone, whether you're an adult or you're a teenager, I want to challenge you to not only stop saying it, but I want you to stop thinking it, because it's an easy thought that comes in our head. When we see something that someone has and we want it and we don't have it, the natural thought is to say, that's not fair. In fact, researchers and psychologists have shown that we first start thinking that's not fair by the age of 2 years old. Now, if you are a parent, you know this, because from a very early age, at some point, one of your kids, especially if you have multiple kids, at some point, one of them came to you and said, well, that's not fair. Why did they get that and I didn't? And it's very difficult to coach kids and to help them understand why they shouldn't say that's not fair. While I was researching this sermon, I found a show from a clip from a TV show. And I don't watch this show. I know nothing about this show. But when I was doing research for That's Not Fair, this clip came up, and I watched it, and I think it illustrates something perfectly to us, especially if you are a parent. I think you're going to appreciate the struggle of this clip. Check it out.
Can I have a mango pop?
No, there's only one.
Well, that's not fair. It's not fair, Daddy.
What?
Lily got a mango pop and I didn't get one.
Yep.
Well, that's not fair.
I don't even know what that means.
Why does she get one and not me?
Because she's a separate person from you. You're never going to get the same things as other people. It's never going to be equal. It's not going to happen ever in your life, so you might as well learn that now, okay?
Well, then I get something else, Yummy.
You
I get something else.
What do you mean you get?
I get something else, Yummy.
Nobody, Jane, nobody gets anything.
She got something. She got a mango pop.
Yeah, that's right now she's lucky, and you're not particularly lucky. Maybe later you'll be lucky. Maybe
But
at
it's
some
so
point.
not fair.
You only should be concerned with what somebody else
It's not fair.
I'm telling you something right now. You should only ever be concerned with what's...
You're not fair.
Listen to me. The only time you look in your neighbor's bowl is to make sure that they have enough. You don't look in your neighbor's bowl to see if they have as to make sure you have as much as them. You want to just make sure that they are... If
Can
you
I
look
just
in,
have some calcium
yes,
chocolate?
you can have a calcium chocolate. Make sure your sister gets one too.
Thank you, Daddy.
Yeah, you're welcome.
when I saw that clip, I just felt like the struggle is real. You try to teach your kids, yeah, life's not going to be fair, but then they just wear you down because they just keep coming at you and they keep coming at you, and you're trying to help them understand it. And in a lot of ways, I feel this way as a pastor. We are on the final week of this series, and I've been trying to motivate and inspire you and show you from the Bible why it is so important to not have this mindset of that's not fair. But then even going through this series, I constantly hear people say, but that's not fair. Why do they get that and I don't? And so on the final week of this series, I want to challenge you and I want to encourage you to take some notes because we're going to move on to a new thing next week. And I want to make sure that you get this. I want to make sure this is the final swan song. I want to make sure that you leave from here with something practical that you can take with you. And today we're going to look at a part of That's Not Fair that I think destroys so much of our contentment, and that is the word envy. If you're taking notes, I'd encourage you to write this down. Here's the definition of envy. Envy is a feeling of discontented or resentful longing aroused by someone else's possessions, qualities, or luck. So envy is this feeling of being discontent. It's this feeling that rises from within. It's a feeling that comes that you didn't ask for. You don't know where it comes from. You don't know what started it, but just you see something that someone else has, and you say to yourself, well, I want that. Why do they have that and I don't? Do you see how envy is connected with that's not fair? You see the possessions someone else has, and you just start to compare and say, well, I want what they have. And the problem is that when you start to compare, it causes you to not be grateful and thankful for the things God has already given you. I started the church 11 years ago, and the same year that I started it, a friend of mine also started a church. And it was very cool to start churches around the same times because we could compare notes and kind of see where things were going. And on a regular basis, we would meet, and we would go out to Panera and just kind of share stories and share what God was doing. And for the first year of our church's existence, Next Level Church had more people attending than his church. Now, I didn't brag about that. I wasn't competitive with it. It's just the facts. It's just we had more people coming than his church. But around about the year mark, he moved locations, and his church opened into a brand new location, and they started exploding in growth. Like they went from like 75 people to 250 people, standing room only, multiple services, like everything was packed. There were just people everywhere. And so we go to meet, and he is sharing with me in his excitement. And the whole time he's sharing, on the outside I'm saying, yeah, that's great. Look at God go. But on the inside I'm like, what the heck? Are you serious right now? Like, how come you have standing room only? Our numbers have been the same for the last couple months. Like, I don't understand it. And inside, I just felt this, like, competition. I felt this envy. So you can be someone who loves God. You can be someone who is passionate about God. You can be someone who goes to church every single week. You can love Jesus, and still there's this feeling that comes inside of you that's like, well, that's not fair. That's not right. Why do you get that and I don't? I found myself responding to it. I literally went home after the lunch and I just started praying, and I was like, God, you got to do something. You got to fix it. We got to reach people. We need more people. And then I started thinking to myself, maybe it's not us. Maybe the problem is our ushers, and I need to train our ushers how to count better. And so I started composing an email to our ushers, and I'm typing up the email, and one of the first lines in the email is, listen, I need to encourage you to make sure you count. Every person counts because every person matters to God. And when we see a pregnant woman walk in, I need you to count them as 2 people. It's a person, it's a life. They're here. I deleted the email. I did not send the email because in that moment, I felt this little bit of conviction. It was like the whisper of the Holy Spirit said, did you really care that much about reaching people when your church was bigger than Jeff's? Are you doing this because you really want to reach people for Jesus, or are you doing this because your ego says that church is bigger than yours? Envy is something that corrupts us from the inside. And even good people, even spiritual people, even people who love Jesus can have envy come out of them. Look at what our verse says. Proverbs 14:30 says, a heart at peace gives life to the body. I want to stop there just for a second. A heart at peace. The scriptures teach us that a heart at peace comes from giving God your heart. It's this understanding of, God, I'm trusting in you. I am thankful for what you've given me. When you're content with what God has given you, when you're focused on God, when you're giving God your junk and he's giving you his good stuff, you become content on the inside. But look what the verse says next. But envy rots the bones. Envy rots the bones. Now, it's interesting to me why the author of Proverbs says that envy rots the bones. Why not rots the skin? Like, why not rots something else? Why did he pick rots the bones? Well, the answer is because envy corrupts from the inside. And it starts as a decay. It starts with a feeling that you have inside. And no one knows when you have an envious thought. No one can read your mind. No one can see it. It's like a rotting of the bones. And if you're not careful, if you don't dismiss that thought, if you don't ask God to forgive you of that thought, if you don't get that thought out of your head, what happens is you start to be corrupted from the inside. It's kind of like a cancer to the soul. I was reading an interesting article, and this was fascinating to me. I don't know a lot about cancer. I haven't done a lot of research on cancer, but according to the article that I was reading, all of us have cancer living in our bodies all the time. We all have cancer. But our bodies are constantly fighting against cancer, so we don't let it spread. It doesn't spread throughout our bodies. But scientists and researchers don't quite understand why some human bodies allow the cancer to spread. And they don't know exactly what causes it. They have some theories. Some of the theories is that sugar can cause cancer to spread. There's also some theories in research that says negativity and being negative and pessimistic can actually cause cancer to spread from within. But no one knows the answer for sure. And that is, when I read that, it reminded me a lot of this verse, that envy rots our bones. It rots from within. Envy is something that is inside of us. It comes from within. No one causes us to be envious. No one can put envy inside of us. It is something that is literally inside. It comes from a corrupt heart, and it comes from the inside and then ends up going outward. This is why the gospel is so incredibly important to us. The gospel is the good news of Jesus, and the gospel tells us that we are way more sinful than we care to admit. None of us likes to admit that we have envy. None of us likes to talk about it. We don't want to brag about it. We don't want to admit. I didn't want to admit to you that I was envious of my friend's church. We don't like that. That's not a positive thing to feel. But if you're honest with yourself, there's some selfishness, some jealousy, some envy that comes from within. The gospel points that out. We are way more sinful than we care to admit. But we are way more loved by God than we could ever imagine. And the God of the universe loves us through our difficulties. He loves us through our imperfections. He loves us through our selfishness. And envy is this thing that is inside of us that literally can cause us to be discontent of our lives. If you're taking notes, I encourage you to write this down. Envy can fool us into thinking that life's fulfillment is achieved when we get what others have. Envy can fool us into thinking that life's fulfillment is achieved when we get what others have. Envy is a trickster. It can fool us. It makes us think, okay, I'm not happy because I don't have what they have. I will be happy. My life will be better. I will be fulfilled when I get what someone else has. Best-selling author Simon Sinek, he gives this illustration in one of his talks called Understand the Game. And he mentions this study where they surveyed people and they gave them two options. And the first option was they said, would you rather have a $400,000 house on a street where all the other houses are $100,000? Or would you rather have a $1 million house on a street where all the other houses are $2 million? Overwhelmingly, the people surveyed said they'd rather have a $400,000 house than a $1 million house because they want to be one up on their neighbors. That line of thinking is ingrained in us. It is sinful, it is prideful, it is corrupt. We would rather have something to make others feel envious of us than something even better for us. Stanford researcher Leon Festinger, he developed a line of research in social comparison theory, and what he showed is that all of us have this comparison inside of us. That all of us, we're constantly looking at other people and we're comparing. We're seeing how we measure up. And what he said is that social comparison theory, what we often do is we compare ourselves to other people on the ladder. And so we look at someone else, and when we see someone is ahead of us, we feel bad about ourselves. When we see that we're ahead of someone else on the ladder, we feel better about ourselves. The interesting thing about his research, though, is that he said that we specifically compare ourselves to people who are lower than us when it comes to morals and ethics. So when it comes to our spiritual life, we often don't improve because we look down the ladder and we say, well, I'm better than the murderers down there. I'm better than those sinners. I don't need to improve or have God do anything else in my life because I'm better than all those people down at the bottom of the ladder. But what he said in his research, and this was fascinating to me, when it comes to money and stuff, we always compare ourselves to people that are ahead of us on the ladder. So we're looking down at other people for how they're doing spiritually, but then we're envious of people who are better than us. And the Proverbs says that that type of comparison that's inside all of us, that type of comparison that we're born with, that no one taught us how to do, that type of comparison, it is rotting us from within. I love the quote by Shauna Nyquist. She says, "One way to ensure a miserable life is to constantly measure your own life to the lives of the people around you." You want to have a miserable life? Just keep looking up the ladder. Just keep comparing. Just keep saying, well, why doesn't my husband act that way? Why isn't my job like that? Why do they get to have all these nice things and I don't? In the New Testament, there's a book by the author. His name is James. He is Jesus' half-brother. And he's often compared to Proverbs. Our theme verse comes from Proverbs, and a lot of people would say that James is the New Testament version of Proverbs. It's wisdom sayings that help us improve our lives. And Jesus' brother James has this to say about envy in James 3:14. He says, "But if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth." One of the things I love about James is he's very straightforward. When I was new to reading the Bible, my youth pastor challenged me as an 8th grader to read the Bible, and I tried to read it a couple times, and it was boring, and it was over my head, and I was like, I don't know what any of this stuff means. And then a friend of mine encouraged me to read the book of James, and I love James because it was just like straightforward. He just says what he means, and he means what he says. And there's no like beating around the bush. You don't have to have a seminary degree to understand. James says, if you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambition in your hearts, don't boast about it. Don't deny the truth. Don't rationalize it and say, well, you know what? It's okay for me to be envious because that is an evil person or that's a bad person. Don't rationalize it inside of your mind and start to say, okay, you know, why do they get something that I don't? They probably get that because they're cheating or they're stealing or they're only getting that because of nepotism. No, don't rationalize it. Get rid of it. Get it out of you. Say it out loud. That's an envious thought. That's not honoring to God. If you harbor bitter envy and selfish ambitions in your hearts, do not boast about it or deny the truth. Look what James says next in James 3:15 through 16. Such wisdom does not come down from heaven, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. Dun, dun, dun. For where you have envy and selfish ambition, there you find disorder and every evil practice. So James is not afraid to step on our toes. And I want to make sure that you hear this. When envy comes, James says, hey, listen, that's not just a vice. That's not just something that, you know, it's a character flaw. James literally says when there is envy in your hearts, it is demonic. It's not of God. It's not honoring to God. So don't play around with it. Don't rationalize it. Don't justify it. Don't pretend it's not there. Get rid of it. Why? Because wherever you find envy and selfish ambition, there you will find disorder. And ultimately what envy causes us to do is it causes us to resent God because we start to say, God, why didn't you give me what they have? There's a really well done illustration on TikTok that I saw, and I think it illustrates this point really well about not being grateful for what God has given us because we're comparing what we have to other people. Check this out.
Hey guys, I got you each a gift. Hey guys, I got you each a gift.
No way, Jesus, why?
Awesome. Well, I just love you guys, so I wanted to get you something.
Wow.
So nice. Laura, you first.
Wow, this is so exciting. Oh, will you look at this, a little 8-ounce can of Coke? This is perfect for me.
I looked everywhere to find a gift for you, and this just seemed to fit.
I love it.
Drew?
Yeah.
Your turn.
All right. No way, Jesus. Seriously?
Oh, yeah.
20 ounces of Coke? Yeah, baby.
Woo!
This is awesome. Oh, Jesus, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Laura, we got to go show Richard our gifts. Come on.
Okay.
Hey, Laura, is there a problem?
No. I mean, well, yeah, kind of, you know. It's just that every time you give people gifts, you always give everyone else more than you give me.
What do you mean?
I mean, like, I open my gift and, oh, cute, 8 ounces. And then Drew opens his gift and, hello, 20 ounces.
Oh, I know what you mean. Well, that gift is for Drew.
Well, that's what I want. Go get it for me.
Okay, if that's what you want.
Yeah.
I got a liter.
Whoa.
I know, it's 1 liter of God's sweet goodness. Jesus gave it to me.
He did?
Yes.
Okay, you know what? You're going to meet somebody with a bigger bottle, and you are going to be so mad.
Laura, check it out. I got an upgrade. Coke 3.0.
That is awesome.
I know.
Well, isn't that just great?
Yeah. Hey, Jesus, you rock.
Yeah.
Thanks,
What
Drew.
is wrong with you? Why are you holding back your best from me?
I gave you my best. Don't you see what's happening here? You're letting everyone else's gifts steal your joy.
No, Jesus, you are stealing my joy by giving everyone else more than you give me.
Laura, I picked this gift out for you. That's what I wanted you to see.
I don't care.
Until you can look past this, all you're going to see is a can of Coke.
Kind of a humbling video to watch when you realize that you're the person with the little can of Coke. And that so often we miss out on who Jesus is and what Jesus has given us because all we're looking at is what we have in our hand. And we look around and we say, well, they've got more than me. Well, they seem happier than I do. Why do they have the thing that I want? Instead of being thankful for what we do have. James is really clear. James says envy leads to disorder. Envy leads to disorder. So I want to encourage you to analyze some things in your life. Maybe there's some disorder in your life and you don't even know that it's coming from envy. Maybe you're so focused on what someone else has that you're like, well, they're the problem, they're the issue. But could it be that today God is whispering to you that no, the issue is envy. There's envy in your life and it's leading to disorder. It's leading you to be not thankful for the things that God has given you. But watch this. Thankfulness leads to order. Envy leads to disorder, but thankfulness leads to order. We overcome envy by being thankful for what we have. When we're too busy counting our blessings, we don't have enough time to look at what other people have. So I want to encourage you and challenge you to intentionally put some time in your day where you do nothing but thank God and just watch what happens. Just watch what happens. When you wake up in the morning, spend your first few seconds just thanking God. God, thank you for another day. Thank you that you give me a bed to sleep in. Thank you for my family. Just spend time thanking God. And before you go to sleep every single night, just spend time thanking God. God, thank you for this day. It wasn't a perfect day, but I thank you for what you gave me. God, thank you for the blessings that you've given me. Yeah, we've had some hardships. Yeah, we got some difficulties. But God, you still gave me something to be thankful for. Intentionally spend time thanking God for things and watch what it does to your mental mindset and watch how it pushes envy out of you. One of the reasons that we don't thank God more for things is that we tend to take for granted the things that are in our lives. We tend to not appreciate the things that we expect. So you just expect that you're going to have a church service every Sunday. And then one day the church disappears and then all of a sudden you become thankful because you're like, oh, I took it for granted. You just expect that you'll have a job to go to on Monday morning. But if that job ends, all of a sudden you become thankful because you're like, oh, I took it for granted. Even your family, did you know you can take your family for granted? Because you just expect they're going to be there all the time. But one day your family will leave. Everyone in your family at some point leaves for various reasons. And when they leave, then you start to say, oh, I wish I would have appreciated them. Why do we wait for someone to die or move away to show appreciation? Start today. Start today. Literally right now, you can just start thanking God. Find something to be thankful for. God, my life's not perfect, but I want to thank you for the blessings that you've given me. God, I've got some issues, but I want to thank you for the good things that you've given me. God, I have some dreams and goals, and I may not have achieved them, but I am going to thank you for the things that you've given me today. If you're not careful, what happens is you end up being frustrated at God because he hasn't given you something that he says you don't even need. There's a story about a 72-year-old man who had a hobby, and he loved to fish, and he was sitting in his boat, and he heard a voice say, pick me up. He looked around and he didn't see anyone, and he thought he was dreaming, but then he heard the voice say again, pick me up. He looked in the water, and there floating at the top of the water was a frog. The man said, are you talking to me? The frog said, yes, I'm talking to you. Pick me up, then kiss me, and I'll turn into the most beautiful woman you've ever seen. I'll make sure that all your friends are envious and jealous because I will be your bride. The man looked at the frog for a short time, reached over, picked it up, and carefully placed it in his shirt pocket. The frog says, what are you, nuts? Did you not hear what I said? I said, kiss me and I will be your beautiful bride. He opened his pocket and looked at the frog, and then he said, nah, at my age, I'd rather have a talking frog. Think about it just for a second. How often do we miss out on the miracle that God has inside our pocket because we're focused on what we want in the future? What would happen if the next time envy comes, if instead of complaining or allowing that thought to take root in your bones, what would happen if you just said, no, God, thank you? The next time you are envious, you may be tempted to put someone down and say, oh, I'm envious of their success, and they only got that because they cheated or because of nepotism. The next time you're envious, you may be tempted to pull someone else down or make fun of that. But instead, what I want you to do is I want you to just thank God for what's possible. God, I don't have the success in my job that they do, but I thank you that you're the God who provides success, and I ask that you'd help me to be thankful and grateful until you give me what I'm aiming for. Instead of putting someone else down, just acknowledge, okay, I've got some envy inside of me. There's some things that I'm jealous of. There's some things I'm comparing for. God, I just want to thank you. I want to thank you for the things you've given me. And I want to thank you that it's possible that we can do what we put our eyes to. This is why the proverb says in Proverbs 14:30, a heart at peace gives life to the body, but envy rots the bones. Today, I just want to ask you, do you have a heart of peace? Or is there some envy? Is there some jealousy? Is there looking at other people? Is there comparing? Is there some thoughts of, oh, I'll be happy when I get a bigger house. I'll be happier when I get that vote. I'll be happier when I get something else. And could it be today that God's saying, okay, listen, you're not going to be happier until you allow me to be the happiness of your soul. So may we be a people that acknowledges just how broken we are. May we understand that envy and selfish ambition come from within, that they're sinful, and the only way to get rid of them is to ask God to forgive us and acknowledge it and claim and accept his forgiveness and his grace. And may we understand that anywhere there's disorder in our lives, it's coming from selfishness, envy, and disorder. And may we replace it with thankfulness so that we can